I'm going to make a few videos on mistakes that I have made as an up-and-coming musician, so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. First one we're going to talk about today is branding and band names. So rebranding or changing your band name can be a bit of a dangerous process for a few reasons. One of the biggest reasons is you could potentially lose any sort of audience that you have amassed so far before your name change. So if you're a small band or a solo artist like me, you've probably put a lot of time and effort into playing gigs and promoting your music, just trying to get your name out there. And you've probably built some sort of an audience in your local area, at least I hope so. Maybe it's a really big audience. Maybe it's just a few people, right? But the point is that you got these people to come to your shows and listen to your music, and they recognize you from one name. So why at this point would you go through and change that name and start over from square one? Absolutely zero fans again is what you have essentially, because your fans don't know that you changed your name. It's usually pretty hard to get your social media posts out there to reach every single person on your list. So if you change the name of your band, it's pretty likely that a lot of the people who listen to you won't get that update, and they won't know that you changed your name. And thus, in effect, when you invite them to an event with your new band name on the flyer, and they don't see your name on there anywhere, they might just pass on that show. They might think, wow, I've never heard from that guy for months and months. I wonder what happened. I wonder where his band went. But in truth, the band still exists. You just rebranded it, and nobody knew that you changed the name. There's really a fine line that you have to ride between retaining your old fans and creating a new image for yourself. And you're going to have to decide which one of these is the better instance for your case. So let's say you have a pretty big following and all of your gigging efforts are going pretty well, but you have a pretty lame band name, or maybe something that doesn't make a lot of sense, maybe something that's kind of offensive or something, and for whatever reason you just have a name that didn't stick or didn't stand the test of time, and you just want to change your name and have a new way to brand your music. I think that you can get away with that pretty fine. You just have to make sure you're really promoting the name change. It'd probably be helpful for the next few gigs that you play after the name change if you put your old name on the flyer too. So you could say like your new band name, formerly the old band name, right? Or you could be like the new band name featuring frontman guy from previous band, right? So there's a few ways you can go about it during your booking and promotion process that will allow you to shoehorn in your new name with your old name at the same time and hopefully bridge some of the gap between old fans and new fans. I'll give you another scenario really quick. Like maybe you had your first starting out band and maybe you weren't that good of a band, right? Maybe you struggled a little bit. Maybe your band members were holding you back. Maybe you're a great musician, right? But you just weren't in the right group or something like that. So you kicked a bunch of people out of the band, got new members in the band. You went and you changed your sound. You wrote some new material. You're trying to make a comeback as better than ever. We don't sound like crap anymore. We're a new band, a new concept. So at that point, taking the risk of losing some of your older fans might be necessary to carry on with a good name and to carry on with a new project that, is something better than what you were doing before, to be frank. So another reason you might change your band name is for legal purposes. Maybe somebody else is already using that band name. Maybe you can't sign up for everything that you need to be successful as a band because somebody else has copyright claim to the name that you're using. And at this point, if you really want to go anywhere with your music career, rebranding is going to be necessary. This is something you should be thinking about when you start a music project. When you go to pick the name, there are a few things that you should be considering right then. The first, of course, is someone else using the name. So get on Google search the band name. Usually if there's nothing ranking high on Google, then that means that even if someone else is using that name, they're probably too small time to give you any serious competition for it. So of course you can't rely on that. All you can do really is search thoroughly on the internet in the places that you know to look. Say Google, YouTube, maybe put SoundCloud, Bandcamp, any platform where musicians commonly host their own compositions at. And if you don't find anybody else with the band name that you've chosen just through that method, then you're probably pretty good to go. Another thing you want to think about is the domain name. Type in your band name plus .com after it into the URL bar at the top of your browser and see if anything comes up. If there's no website at yourbandname.com, then that means the domain name is probably available, and it would be a good idea for you to go and buy the domain name for yourself, even if you don't plan on making a website right now or anytime soon. Domain names are pretty cheap to buy. I think for under $20 a year, you can own your own domain name, and then you can just keep it. That means nobody else will be able to register that domain name and steal it from you. And that also means that anybody else who is looking to name a new band might find your webpage first, or they might see that the domain name is not available, and that will be their deterrent not to take your name that you came up with first. Also, in the case of a dispute, if you have a domain name registered, then you could probably use that if it ever came to like a court case or something. You could use your domain name registration to prove how long you have been using that band name for. My next point is that if you're a solo act, you should give your solo act a name. Unless your name naturally is kind of an interesting or catchy sort of name. It also doesn't have to be your real name. Like you could think of a catchy stage name, a cool name for a solo performer guy, and just call yourself that. But I think it's important for your music project to be named something distinct that stands out from the crowd, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong for seeking recognition with your own personal legal name. I'm just saying that it might work out better for you in terms of building an audience if you called it something a little bit more catchy. I think that people are a lot more likely to click on an album by a band called Fudge Dragon or something like that than they are to click on an album by John Smith. It's really important to catch their attention, and the same kind of goes for album artwork too, right? If Fudge Dragon has some sort of crazy painting on the cover of their album with, medieval times and knights and dragons and fire breathing and stuff, that's a lot more exciting than John Smith's album where he's sitting there holding an acoustic guitar and looking sad and everything's in a sepia tone. And obviously you're going to want to just avoid naming your band anything that is regrettable from the start. I've been playing music since I was 15 and now I'm 30. So obviously some names from my past and some things have stuck with me that I didn't want to stick with me necessarily, but you got to think about this stuff early on. You got to think about this stuff from the get-go. It's important. So the one that I regret kind of the most is I named my music project after sort of an inside joke, a very obscure inside joke that was between me and my brother and my friends at the time when we were teenagers, and it's a very silly name. I'm talking, of course, about Invisible Argyle Sweater. That is the electronic music project that I've been doing since I was a teenager, and I've recently restored and rebooted some of that. No shameless plug here or anything, but you can find some of that on my channel if you want to listen to it. It's a weird name. I didn't really like it, but I kind of stuck with it for too long because I figured there was enough people who recognized me as that name that I didn't want to throw away the little bit of following that I had. But honestly, if I could have done it again, I would have changed the name a super long time ago. So inside jokes, silly stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, maybe it's something that you like today, but in 5 years you're going to look back and think, why in the hell did I ever name my band that? And at that point you could be stuck with it, so be careful. Another mistake I made is I kept the same band name after a massive lineup change and a big change in our sound. And here I'm talking about my punk/metal band Rebel Scum. We started out a long time ago, more of a pop-punk kind of sound like that. My brother Jeff, he was the drummer on the drum kit. We had a few different bassists that we worked with back then. But then we took a really long hiatus, and I wanted to get the band back together. But, we were mid-20s at that point. We liked metal. We liked a lot heavier music than what we were playing back in our poppy, punky kind of days, right? So the new lineup, I'm the only original member. We don't play hardly any of our original songs. None of our new songs sound like our old songs. I think it would have been a better move to rebrand that at the point when I wanted to add more members and change the sound. I think that's when the name should have changed. I don't think it should have continued forward as Rebel Scum from then. But again, we've gigged like that for 4 years. We've got some momentum, and I don't want to restart that momentum. So I'm just going to stick with the name that doesn't work. And the consequences to that, it's not that it's a bad name. The consequences to that is that older listeners still expect something that we are not. I still run into people that I've known from 10 years ago, and they still ask me to play our pop punk hits in our band, and I'm like, no, we don't really do that here. We're playing a metal show now. Everything else on the bill is all metal bands, and we're not going to play our 4-chord pop punk anthem from 2008. And I'm not dissing on pop punk here. I love pop punk. I love any kind of punk. I have lots of friends in punk bands, and I love you guys, and I love all of your music. I'm not talking Chuck at all. I'm just talking about my personal experiences. And this one should kind of come as a no-brainer, I would hope, but use obscene or offensive names cautiously if you're pursuing any sort of real success. You're bound to encounter people who could offer you great opportunities, but they may not be willing to work with your offensive band name. When they go to promote shows, or when they go to talk about which artists that they work with and post about the gigs that are going on in their community, they don't want to type out your messed up band name. They don't want to publish or print anything that might reflect on them poorly, so your music may be the best music that they ever heard, but because your band is called Fart Cannon or something like that, they will probably not work with you, unless you change your name from Fart Cannon. Okay, that's enough for this time, guys. Thanks for listening. I'm going to do a few more like this, kind of in between songs, so stay tuned. I'm releasing a video every week. One week it's music, the other week it's educational. Sometimes I put some little stuff in my channel in between. Like right now I'm releasing an album slowly, track by track. So every few days here there's something popping up in my channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe and the notification and whatever. Yeah, you've heard it a million times, whatever. I'll stop. Anyway, that's it. Hope you have fun out there and catch you next time.